Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good day, and welcome to this Sunday story. Well, this story took place back when I was around 13 years old. It's all about the bus stop, uh, just down the road from my house. My house was on a dirt road, and down in Florida, the dirt roads, they're all sand, white. They're white colored, and most of the year the sand is heavily compacted and they're very good to drive on. But in the wintertime they get soft and the sand gets dry and it gets soft and there's generally soft spots develop in the road, similar to what mud would be. So the story takes place. It was around, I think it was wintertime, and I was around 13 years old. And I had a little walk down to the end of the driveway, and I had to walk down around a loop in the road down to the corner where it met the paved road. And then on the paved road, I walked down a hill to this little four-corner stop where the bus stop was. And all in all, it was about a quarter-mile walk from home to get down to the bus stop. But the bus stop was a little branch in the road where you had one road going off to the right, another road going off to the left, both dirt roads, and the paved road went through the center. And the bus would stop there and pick up the kids. And the sides of the road were all covered with grass. And there was this type of grass that grew down in Florida. We called it sticker grass. And basically what it was, you know how wheat grows? At the top of the wheat stem, you have the wheat, a long stem, and then the wheat grows off the end of the stem. Well, this sticker grass was like that. Except instead of wheat, on the end of the stem, there would be these, what we call stickers. And what they were like little cactuses. They were like little barbs coming off of them, and they were pointed. And they would stick into your flesh just like a cactus. They really would hurt too, But the barbs weren't that long, and they did come out. The barbs, if you pulled them out, if you got them stuck in your skin, it really hurt. If you were walking in bare feet or something, and you stepped on a sticker and it went into your foot, But they weren't a pleasant plant, and kids used to pick off the sticker end. They'd pick off the long stem off of the grass that had the stickers on it, and they'd throw these stickers at one another. And the stickers would land on your clothes, and if you pressed on it, it would stick into your skin. And sometimes they'd throw them at bare skin. If they landed on bare skin, oftentimes they'd stick right into your skin. And they'd hurt. They'd feel like getting stuck with a pin. So at any rate, a lot of those stickers grew on the grass around the bus stop there. And so this one year, I think I was in grades maybe 6 or 7. Might have been grade 7. I think I was around 13 years old. I walked down to the bus stop, and there'd be about 4 kids down there waiting for the bus. And of course the kids were bored, You know how kids are when they're bored. But at any rate, in our school, I was the only of 2. There was only 2 kids in my religion in the entire school. And the other kids did not like us. We were in a religion called the Jehovah's Witness religion. The other kids did not like us at all. They were very prejudiced toward Jehovah's Witnesses. And of course, word went through the entire school that these 2 kids are Jehovah's Witnesses, and of course, all the kids in school, they had an awful lot of, how can I put it anyway? They're prejudiced. So I remember I walked down to this bus stop, and there's this one kid there. He was a boy, and he was about 2 years younger than me. And he wasn't as big as I was, he's a little bit smaller. And he took it into his head that he was going to pick on me at the bus stop. So that's what he started doing, this kid. I'll call him I'll call him Jay because his first name started with J. He would pick up these stickers and throw them at me. He'd run at me and yell and scream at me and call me names and other things. And the other kids standing around the bus stop, they kind of was cheering him on a little bit, but every morning he was tormenting me. A little bit worse every morning while I was waiting at the bus stop. And there was also this big fat girl. Well, the fat girl, she was about 2 years older than me, and she was bigger than me. She was substantially bigger than anybody else at the bus stop. She wasn't just rotund. She was like stocky in every part of her, and a very homely looking face, and scraggly hair. She walked funny. Of course, that's because she kind of thrust herself along because she was really fat. But she was stout. A little bit different than just being fat. It wasn't all belly. It was all of her, everything, all the way down to her ankles. Her ankles are big and thick and heavy. Her arms are big and thick. Everything was heavy on her. Solid, built like a linebacker. I think she must have weighed about 180 pounds or maybe close to 200 pounds already at her age. And I mean, she was only probably 15 years old. And she used to kind of cheer on this little boy called Jay. He was about maybe 3 or 4 years younger than her. He used to cheer him on. He used to tell him, they were over there whispering in his ear, tell him what to do. Go over there and go. And she'd give him a little push. Go over there and do this to me, and so he would come over and he would start throwing stickers at me or tormenting me. One morning I went down to the bus stop and I was waiting, and this was going on, and he was this J kid was completely berserk toward me. Grabbed my notebook out of my hands, tore all the papers up, threw the notebook, went over, he was pushing at me. And I just about had enough of this stuff. So I swung around and I punched him right in the face. Down he went. Because I was about 2 years older than him. Gave him a bloody lip. And he stopped. He stopped picking on me then. No more. That was it for him. He wasn't going to tackle me anymore. Once he got hit in the face, that was it. So I went down the next morning after that happened, and that girl, that big fat girl, she started doing the same thing. She would go over and pick up stickers and come walking over and swat me across the back of the neck with them, or try to sneak up behind me or put stickers in my pants or throw these sticker bushes. It's all about stickers with her. Just coming over and trying to punch me and calling me names. And the little fella, the J kid, he was like behind her, egging her on. Go get him, he'd say. Go get him. Go throw those stickers at him, he'd say, and stuff. But see, I was trained never to hit a girl. And no matter what she did, I wouldn't hit her. I wouldn't hit her or punch her or hurt her or anything. And she was bigger than me, too, but still, I mean, she was a lady after all, even if she was not much of a lady. I mean, the way she was acting, that's the way kids act, though, see? And you got to picture it in terms of not being an adult. I was only 13 and the girl was about 15. She probably should have known better at that age than to act that way. But back in the old days, there used to be an awful lot more bullying went on in the schools. So every morning they'd make a kind of torment me and make my life a living hell for about 15 minutes while I was waiting for the bus. And I'd get on the bus, and this went on for about 2 weeks. With this girl constantly getting a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse, throwing stickers at me and doing things to try to egg me on and and calling me names and just making my life a misery at the bus stop every morning for like 2 weeks. So finally this one afternoon came along. And I went and got on the bus, and there was an open seat. And, generally the bus filled right up. We had a very strict bus driver at that point in time. He wouldn't tolerate any even noise on the bus or anything. He was like, he would actually pull over and stop the bus and get off and stand up in the middle of the aisle and come over and pick out the kid that did something bad or said anything or yelled or anything. He wouldn't tolerate anything on his bus. This was his bus. So I got on his bus, and he was a good bus driver. I saw this open seat, and I was going to drive home. I was on my way home, it was in the afternoon when they're picking the kids up, and I saw this open seat, so I slided in toward the window. Well, here she comes, the girl. She come waddling down the aisle. She's so wide that her hips are touching both sides of the seats on either side as she come waddling down the aisle. And she slid herself right in next to me and sat down. I said, oh no, oh no, oh no. And I turned to one side and put my head right up against the glass looking out the window. I didn't even want to look at her. Well, the little did I know that this was going to be the long, and also it was going to tell me, like now looking back at it, I figured out what was going on. All those 2 weeks that she was tormenting me came to a conclusion, and I figured out what it was all about on that bus ride home. So the bus took off. We started to go down through the school parking lot. It wasn't long. We had barely left the school headed toward home, and it was a 20-mile drive home. And the old bus driver, he'd only drive about 40 miles an hour. So it took quite a long time, it's, what's that, 40 miles an hour, and a couple other stops on the way, That's it's probably pretty near an hour's trip. So she got me sitting up next to the window, and I didn't even want to look at her. But because she took up, those bench seats, if she just barely had enough room to keep her arse from sliding off the edge of the aisle seat, even with me sitting next to her. And I was squinched up against the window. Well, she just barely got out of the school parking lot, and we were on the road starting to move out toward the main highway. And I felt her hand running down my arm. Her fingers lightly running down my arm. And I'm going to tell you what, on that trip home, I would only describe it as sexual harassment. I didn't want nothing to do with her. Furthest thing from my mind, I didn't find her any way attractive whatsoever, even at 13 years old. But she kept making these advancements all the way home. And I had to turn around and look at her once or twice, And she was all kissy. She had a crush on me, and this is the reason why she was tormenting me. Well, she liked me. But I'm going to tell you guys what, it made for the most uncomfortable trip on the way home that I've ever had in my life. I think I was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my entire life. And I daren't say much because I didn't want to get that bus driver mad. So I kind of put up with it all the way home. It's a sad life sometimes, the things that go on, especially with kids, and they don't tell their parents, about some of the things that happen, but anyway, so possibly next week, I think I'm going to tell you guys a further story. It's not too far in the future from about this bus stop. Another story that happened that caused me to quit school and end up going out and getting my first job. But, I mean, don't worry, because, after I quit school, I went back to community college and I furthered my education. But, I did quit the actual public school system when I was not quite 15 years old. So it was a little bit more than a year later. This story I'm going to tell you next week happened. It was a more serious situation involving bullying at the school that caused me to quit the school and move on and get my first job working with actual on a real job, down in a place called Orlando, Florida, working in an auto body repair shop as an apprentice. And, I was only 15 years old. And I worked there until I was 17. And, of course, you're saying to yourself, well, how could you work at a real job when you're only 15 years old? You're too young. Well, that's an interesting question, and I didn't work. I didn't have a pay slip as such. I was paid under the table, sort of, and I'll explain it to you next week. Anyway, listen, guys, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you guys Monday morning with a new show. I'm going to tell you guys right now that there's an awful lot going on within the banking system right now. I think they're trying to sweep an awful lot of it under the rug as much as they can, but there's a certain degree of insolvency within some of the larger banks. And it could spread within the system. It's happening right now in real time. It's hard to quite get my finger on exactly which banks or how much the insolvency issues are or how big the insolvency issues are. But you remember what happened in China not long ago, just within the last year. How the people wanted their money and the banks just basically weren't giving it to them, and the people were all in protest, but it didn't do little or any good to protest. Never forget, the banks own your money. You don't own your money. The banks have your money in the bank. They own your money. And they can do with it what they want to do with it. And right now, I would say that because the Fed is following through with this raising interest rates, the loan officers in these big banks, what they're doing right now is they're firing their loan officers. And the reason why is because they're not making any loans. This is the system that creates money, what we call money, or credit within the system, is new money that's created through fractional reserve banking. And if that stops, even for a limited period in time, you guys, when you walk into a bank and you see all those marbled walls and marbled floors and glass everywhere and everything, and a big expensive looking vault and all that stuff, and all those employees milling around doing little or nothing, where do you think the money comes from to pay for all that? It comes from them making loans. When they make a loan, say Mr. Jones comes in off the street and he says, okay, I want to make a loan, $1 million. And he walks over to the loan officer and they're approved, okay, Mr. Jones, you loan $1 million. So all they do is just write that $1 million down on the bank's balance sheet. And now suddenly that money springs into existence that never existed before. So now there's $1 million more in the system out there. Well, that might hire people, that might pay people's pay scale and pays everything in the system. It keeps the system running, oiled, lubricated, and it also keeps the bank lubricated because now he owes them $1 million with interest. Suddenly the bank's $1 million richer because now they have a loan that they can call in and they can get payments on it every month, and now they've got another $1 million for the bank. So now they can buy more marbled floors. Now they can hire more employees. But what happens when all this reverses? When interest rates go up too high and nobody's making any loans? That's what's happening right now. These loan officers are being fired because nobody's borrowing any money. And so what are they doing? The few people that are making loans, there's still a few, they're handling it. The bank is handling it with their managerial staff. They're staff that used to do other things. They're getting them to become loan officers to carry that because there's such little of it that it's they don't need all those extra employees. So they're laying them off. This only exacerbates the problem even worse when the banks lay off a whole bunch of people. Trimming back or cutting back. Businesses around the country right now are doing the same thing. Soon you're going to see, if you still see these signs set up, help wanted, at these restaurants and stuff, jobs that people didn't ordinarily want to have, you'll see them taking down those signs pretty soon. Because in desperation, these people are being laid off. Eventually, they're going to start working again. And they're going to take those jobs, those menial labor jobs. Because the economy in its entirety right now is going down. Do you hear a toilet sound, a toilet being flushed? Because we're in the reverse action now. We were in the upswing where the money creation was, interest rates were zero for so long and money creation was off the hook. So there's a lot of dollars floating around the system. Now, this is how inflation got started. Now we're on the opposite side of that curve where the money is disappearing from the system as fast as it went in. The other side, now it's flying out. The money's disappearing. And this is going to, these companies and all these things that are susceptible to a deflating system are going to suddenly find themselves in trouble. Zombie companies and stuff, which is an awful lot of the companies out there have to have this in order to survive. They have to have that constant inflow of new, fresh capital. It's drying up. So very soon now, I see this coming, that the system could actually lock up because it doesn't have enough money to keep it running. And it's going to lock up on the top end. What I mean by lock up is the first big banking institution that goes down, it will carry other banking institutions down with it, and it can create a problem where it actually locks the system, locks the monetary system. Then what they have to do is they have to get it freed up again. This is what almost happened in 2008. We are right on the verge of this again. So stay tuned this week, guys, because we're so close to all of this going down that you want to stay tuned. We'll catch you guys Monday morning. Bye-bye.